Part 25. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 241. Chapter 241, Parting and Farewell. Wang Yuanwei hugged his younger brother and cried bitterly, "My Wazi, it's all my fault, my fault. If you don't honor your mother at home, you must go out to study. As a result, you have been poisoned by evil people and have made you suffer for so many years. I regret it. We of you, big brother wants to die." Li Lao hugged his eldest brother tightly and beat him on the back hard. It's not that he has never hated him. His eldest brother is the person he has admired and been closest to since he was a child. After their father passed away, the eldest brother became the father of their brothers and was their most trusted support. The eldest brother passed the examination as a scholar when he was young. Everyone said that the Li family had a Wenkyuxing. They were envious at that time. After the eldest brother disappeared, those people were very happy about his misfortune. He was also studying in Kaiman and wanted to study for scientific examinations. But the eldest brother is gone, my mother is too sick to get up, and the younger brothers are still young. He could only put down his books and work as a waiter, being yelled at and scolded, and finally made it to the accounting office based on his ability, which would be better. He thought countless times, if his eldest brother was still at home, would he have passed the imperial examination, would his family business be prosperous, and would he have been studying? Unfortunately, everything is if. After waiting for year after year, he thought that his eldest brother had died outside. Unexpectedly, God showed mercy and the family was finally reunited. "Brother, big brother. Do you know how much we miss you and hate you? Why do you insist on going out on a study tour and abandoning us and my mother? My mother is sick and almost went blind from crying. The third and fourth child fight with others every day. I'm only a teenager, and I'm scared too, but I want to treat my mother's illness, protect the third and fourth children, and make money to support the whole family. Brother, I also want to study, and I want to be the top scholar, but I can't do it, I can only go be a cow or a horse. Brother, where are you? You are unfilial." Wang Yuanwei cried so hard that he almost fainted. He felt so guilty that he wanted to cut himself alive. Farewell in life and death is the greatest tragedy in the world. Not far away, Wang Fu also pulled up his sleeves and kept wiping his tears. But there were so many people coming and going here that it was not easy to attract the attention of outsiders, so he quickly stepped forward to persuade him. "Sir, sir, the past has passed, it's good to be reunited now, let's think about the future, we can't cry anymore now." Li Lao let go of Yuanwei Wang and wiped his tears randomly. Suddenly he remembered what Yuanwei Wang said just now, "Brother, what does it mean to be framed by evil people? What happened back then?" Wang Yuanwei took a few deep breaths and cried bitterly, feeling much better. He took his younger brother and walked further and further into the nearby woods, whispering the Wang family's plan. Li Lao was so stunned after hearing this that he turned around and walked out. "I'm going to kill their whole family." "Second brother, come back." Wang Yuanwei quickly grabbed his younger brother and said anxiously, "Killing them will make it easier for them. I have a plan and I want your help." Li Lao wheezed and panted for a long time, then slapped himself hard twice before he finally calmed down and sobered up. "Brother, this revenge must be avenged. You can't be soft-hearted." "Of course," Wang Yuanwei said with gloomy eyes, "I want to bring the children back to our home. They are the blood of the Li family. I also want to take back the family business that I have worked hard to expand over the years, but the rest will all be destroyed. The Wang family harmed me in order to preserve their family business and continue their incense. I want them to fall short and make that old beast so angry that he can't rest in peace." Li Lao was relieved at this. After all, the eldest brother has been married to the girl from the Wang family for many years. If his heart softens, all their plans may come to nothing in the end. "Okay, "Brother, tell me, how can I help?" Li Laoer asked. Wang Yuanwei gave him a few brief instructions, and Li Laoer nodded repeatedly. After a while, the two brothers made an agreement and went to the hot spring water channel. After washing their faces, the outsiders who were cleaning up could not see anything strange, and then they dispersed. Li Laoer was busy calling Ji Yi and Lu Yang to go to Mrs. Kui's village to help deliver the message. Wang Yuan, who had just entered the new capital, found a restaurant and got himself drunk before returning home. Wang Yi was really worried and wanted to ask her husband what was wrong, but her husband kept saying the same thing over and over again. It's just that outsiders look down on businessmen, and he wants to send his son to the academy, and wants his son to take the top exam, etc. She called Wang Fu to come over and inquire. Wang Fu was honest and dull, but his explanation was clear. The master is asking for favors today, and wants to send the eldest young master to Luoan Academy to study. I heard that this academy has a good academic style regardless of his family background. But who knows that he has eaten, drank, and accepted gifts, but he refused to give the letter. Son, I'm afraid I dislike the fact that I'm a businessman. Wang Yi felt distressed and angry after hearing this, so she chased Wang Fu away and took her maid to her home. The Wang family is not far away, but the house is a large courtyard with 7 entrances and a 5-acre garden. It is extremely grand and shows the heritage of a long-established Jiangnan family. Wang Yi's family is from a side branch. Mrs. Wang and the old man who is the head of the family are cousins and have grown up together since childhood. When he grew up, Mr. Wang didn't want to study. He started a business and helped his family. So now that he is dead, he still has some dignity. Today, Wang Yi suddenly came to the door, and Mrs. Wang invited her in to sit and drink tea. Wang Yi held a small basket of fruit in her own hands and said with a smile, "Auntie, this is a fruit that my family occasionally gets outside. There isn't much, but the taste is really good. I'll bring it to my uncle to have something fresh today." "Well, it's hard for you to be filial." Mrs. Wang glanced at the fruit basket and was surprised by the bright red fruits. She smiled and asked Wang Yi to talk about home affairs. "Xiao Yi, you haven't been here for a while. The family is very busy. How is the child?" Wang Yi smiled and said, "Thank you for your concern, madam. The family has been really busy recently. Brother Cat's child was suffering from the cold, which lasted for almost a month, and finally got better. As a result, our master has a headache again, and I am also very worried now. The headache in Xingqiu is not gone yet." Mrs. Wang was kind-hearted and asked, "Because of the relocation of the capital, many good doctors have come to our city. Would you like me to introduce 2 of them to Xingqiu for a good diagnosis of pulse?" Wang Yi's eyes flashed, and she quickly shook her head and refused. "I don't know, my husband has had this problem for more than 10 years. He has seen countless doctors, and now he only has occasional headaches, which is an excellent result. The reason why my husband has a headache recently is because other things." "What's going on?" Mrs. Wang asked curiously. "Your third brother didn't say anything wrong with the family business." "In this family, Mr. Wang is now a bachelor. Although he does not participate in politics, because of his family status here, he has many social activities on weekdays. The eldest master and the second master of the Wang family, one is a doctor in the courts rights department, and the other is a 5th-rank official outside. The third master failed to study, so he took over all the business affairs of the Wang family. Wang Xingqiu also works with this third master to help him on weekdays. He has more contacts and is more familiar with him." Wang Yi's eyes were red, and she acted coquettishly with her mother-in-law. "Mother, it's not about business, it's about our master who wants to send Brother Li to the academy to study. But he asked many people to do it, and it didn't work. People think our family is in business, sir. I've been so angry that I've been drunk for 2 or 3 days, and my headache is getting worse. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, delayed flowering. Chapter 242. Chapter 242 Chapter 2 Chapter 42 The rise and fall of the world is everyone's responsibility. Mrs. Wang frowned, a little annoyed. What a big deal this is, why didn't you talk about it earlier? Zhengkai is the same, he is the son-in-law of the Wang family. Although he usually does business to make a living, there are officials in our Wang family, too. A family of scholars. Wang Yi quickly comforted the old lady. I know my mother-in-law feels sorry for us because we lost our parents a long time ago, but we also respect my mother-in-law and don't want to bother my mother-in-law and disturb my uncle and eldest brother because of such a trivial matter. You girl, you are just a stranger. When your father was still alive, you helped your uncle a lot. Your father only had a daughter like you. When he died, he personally entrusted it to me and your uncle. Don't talk about such a trivial matter. Even if it's such a big thing, your uncle and I can't just sit back and watch. The old lady has been attending many banquets recently, and she is full of confidence as she is supported by others. At this moment, she directly asked her mother-in-law to call her third son over. Mr. Wang is also in his early 30s. Although he usually does business and takes care of public affairs, he comes from a noble family and has no lack of grace and momentum. Wang Yi is also very close to this third brother, and he has often followed him and called him brother since he was a child. At this moment, when the brother and sister met Li, they heard that they were looking for an academy for brother Li. Wang Zhengkai was so angry that he couldn't laugh or cry. This is a small matter. Just take brother's post and send it to Luoan Academy. Why bother making such a fuss? When I see Zhengkai another day, I will say something to him. Why don't you tell me if you have any difficulties? Wang Yi was overjoyed and quickly thanked her brother and said, the master said that the third brother has been very busy recently. He can't help or cause trouble to the third brother. If he hadn't been drunk today, I wouldn't have had the chance to come over secretly. It's a good time. That's how it should be. The family is divided and outsiders can laugh at it. Mr. Wang said a few more words and went out. Soon, a servant brought a gold-gilt name card. Wang Yi took it, beamed with joy, and thanked her mother-in-law. Mrs. Wang asked her mother-in-law to bring up 2 cut cantaloupe and said, come, let's try it together. This is the golden fruit named by the emperor. It tastes really good. I have eaten a few in the summer before, and I fell in love with the taste. I thought it was out of season, but I didn't expect it to be sold again before the Mid-Autumn Festival. Your third brother managed to buy 2 baskets. Wang Yi had also heard about it, and she coaxed the old lady while eating, my mother-in-law is lucky, my third brother is so filial. I heard that this thing is very valuable. I have only eaten jade melon before, and I have never seen this golden fruit. I've seen it before. Yes, I heard that it comes from the broken gold beach outside the city. I wonder if it's because of the hot springs. The fruit is also particularly sweet. Mrs. Wang invited with a smile, I won't be busy in a few days. Let's call your sisters-in-law and bring your nieces to play together. Okay, Wang Yi was thinking about home and couldn't leave for a while, so she said in a deceptive way, but, Auntie, there's no rush in this matter. I heard that this hot spring is hot to the touch in winter. When it snows in winter, it will definitely be more fun to enjoy the snow scene while soaking in the hot spring. Then we can book the hot spring at home for 2 days, so we don't have to worry about anyone bumping into us, so we can have more fun. Yes, that's how it should be, then wait until the snow falls. The old man and the young man chatted for a long time before Wang Yi took her leave. After returning home, Wang Yuanwei also sobered up. He was so happy when he saw the famous post. He couldn't help but praise his wife a few words, Xiaoyi, you are so kind. You didn't say anything about my worries, but you also gave me a message. Brother Li has built a ladder to reach the sky. As a good wife and mother, women all over the world should look to you as an example. Wang Yi blushed and waved her hands quickly. What do you say, sir? It's the right thing for you and the child. Wang Yuanwei quickly nodded in approval and said, tomorrow I will go to the small town of Luoan to see if there is a suitable yard. You will have to work harder at first. You will live there with Brother Li for a month or two, and so on. Brother Li has adapted, just leave two capable women to take care of him. Wang Yi was a little worried about her family, so Wang Yuanwei hugged her and comforted her. Don't worry, the academy is only a dozen miles away from Kyoto, and it only takes half an hour to get there by carriage. I will visit you often, and you can come back often. Wang Yi thought about the same thing, so she nodded, lay in her husband's arms, and whispered, okay, please come visit me and my son often. Of course. Brother Cat is too noisy. I'll take him with him for the time being. Just take care of Brother Li, Wang Yuanwei said with a smile on his face while stroking his wife's hair. The couple were so harmonious and loving that the maid and mother-in-law standing at the door were envious. But they didn't see that the smile on Wang Yuanwei's face didn't reach his eyes at all. The second day was a nice and crisp autumn day. Every household in the new village started sharpening sickles and weaving baskets in their spare time, preparing to wait for the millet on the mountains to dry in the sun again before harvesting. Mrs. Li was sitting at the door of the yard, tapping a pile of pods. In spring, some rice and bean seedlings were planted around the vegetable garden. Now when they are pulled out and dried in the sun, the pods will explode when they are beaten with wooden sticks, revealing beans covered with patterns. These beans are about the size of peanuts. Soak them in water and cook them together with rice. They are delicate, soft, and delicious. Jiyan followed Grandma and helped her for a while, then yawned and ran to the linoleum to lie down and be lazy. The little girl is white and fat, wearing a floral dress and trousers, resting her arms and crossing her legs. This scene is so interesting no matter how you look at it. Occasionally, when villagers walk by, they would squat down and tease her. The good news was too much to bother me, so I simply turned over and pretended to sleep. The autumn wind brings a bit of coolness, which neutralizes the harshness of the sun. It is really comfortable. Jiyan's mind was wandering in the space. He put the chicken, duck, and goose eggs he had saved in the past few days in one place, preparing to find an opportunity to stuff them into the kitchen. In the fish pond in the corner of the courtyard, the small fry put in last year are now half a foot long. This is a wild fish in a small river. It is not as good as the farmed fry in the small courtyard. It is not easy to grow to such a size. Tomorrow I will take out some fish and make a crucian carp tofu soup. It is delicious and mainly for calcium supplement. With her little body, she is already over 2 years old, so she can't always gain weight or grow taller. Jiyan pinched her belly secretly, imagining that she would turn into a ball when she put on her coat and pants in winter. As well as those fat pigs, they never had the chance to be released and killed, but they were allowed to enjoy the blessings, and they all became fat and big-eared. Even, they are in free love. Just last month they gave birth to 2 litters of piglets, one with 6 and the other with 7. It's only been less than a month, and each of them looks chubby, and has pink and white fur. No matter how cute they look, they are cute. But good news will not refrain from killing them just because they are cute. She has already made plans. In a few days, she will select a few young boars to be kept as breeding pigs, and castrate the rest into eunuch pigs, which will also be beneficial to fattening. She will try to kill 2 of them during the Chinese New Year. Speaking of fattening, it involves the 5 acres of private land behind the yard. Because there are so many more mouths in the small yard, I am afraid that there will not be any leftover corn and potatoes from the harvest. But Jiyan always wanted to give these 2 things to Mr. Ye to help Tianwei restore the country's strength and regain the country. Although she is just a little girl, the Li family is also a small farming family. But every man is responsible for the rise and fall of the world. Without a prosperous and powerful country, how can the people have a stable life? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 243. Chapter 243 The Revenge of Seizing a Son. She doesn't want to run away anymore. If she didn't have the golden finger of Bai Kang Xiaoyuan, she would be lucky to have a family who loves her in this life, but she can only love each other under the clouds. Old Mrs. Li was almost busy. Just when she was about to see her granddaughter, she heard the sound of a carriage. When she looked up, it turned out that Mrs. Kui was coming. Before she could say anything, Ji Yin had already jumped up and ran over with her little fat legs. Senior aunt, senior aunt. Fu Niu misses you. Mrs. Kui smiled broadly as soon as she got off the carriage. She quickly knelt down to receive the good news and kissed her a few times. Senior sister has been busy recently and finally got some free time, so she hurriedly came to see you. Mrs. Li patted the dust on her body and said with a smile, I thought this girl was fast asleep, but she was pretending. When she saw you, she ran faster than a rabbit. Mrs. Kui smiled and stepped forward to salute. Auntie, are you busy at home? You're not busy, the autumn harvest is coming soon, and everyone is waiting to have a big job. The old lady waved her hand away. You must be tired from riding in the car, go back and have a rest, I still need to clean up here. Mrs. Kui smiled and nodded. At this moment, Ji Yi ran back and shouted, Mistress, the fourth aunt said that there are many guests today and some of them are too busy. Please help me. Really, there are so many guests today. Old Mrs. Li was confused and wanted to give some instructions, but Mrs. Kui had already said before her, Auntie, please go, it just so happens that I can kiss Fu Niu for a while longer. Ji Yin also quickly waved her little chubby hand, Grandma, don't worry, Fu Niu is good. Mrs. Li then followed her grandson. When they were no longer in sight, the carriage door opened and Mr. Wen and Luz Haiheng also jumped out. Ji Yin's eyes widened in shock, and she subconsciously guessed that there was something going on at home, and it was something she could only talk about if she had to avoid her grandma. Perhaps feeling nervous about the good news, Mrs. Kui patted her on the back and coaxed in a low voice, Don't be afraid, Fu Niu, my aunt is here. Before Ji Yin could ponder and test a few words, Wang Yuanwei and Li Lao also walked in from outside the village. Several people quickly entered Mrs. Kui's yard and closed the door tightly. Ji Yin hugged Mrs. Kui's neck tightly and vaguely guessed. Sure enough, as soon as everyone sat down, Mr. Wen asked, Second brother, you are looking for us in such a hidden place, but there is something wrong at home. Luz Haiheng had been invited to many banquets earlier because he was selling jade melons and golden fruits, and he had gained weight after eating. Now he held his big belly in his hands and asked with a smile, Don't you want to sell fruits at home? The fruits and pears sent to our house earlier are so delicious. If we plan well, the price will not be much worse than the jade melon. Mrs. Kui couldn't help but scolded, Brother, you are really full of business knowledge now, you should listen to what is going on before you talk. Li Lao and Wang Yuanwei looked at each other, and Wang Yuanwei stood up and saluted everyone solemnly, Li Zhensheng, the eldest son of Li, has met you all and thanked you for taking care of our family in the past. I, Li Zhensheng, am grateful in my heart. I will be generous in the future. Report. Everyone was stunned when they heard this, but when they realized what was happening, they all stood up happily. Mr. Wen helped Li Zhensheng and said, Great, has your memory been restored? Yes, tell Auntie quickly. Auntie is so excited that she will cry her eyes out. Mrs. Kui also had red circles in her eyes, and she was so happy that she didn't know what to say. Even Luz Haiheng laughed and said, Happy event, What a great event. Although the Li family's search for their son was not publicized, everyone present was close to the Li family and had a bond of life and death together, so they all knew something about it. After all, Wang Yuanwei went in and out of the village almost every day and was treated by Dr. Zhang. It was not the Li family's guarantee or the Li family's respect. It was impossible for an outsider to walk around like this. Jiyan was also happy. He clapped his little fleshy hands, struggled out of his aunt's arms, and threw himself into his uncle's arms. "Uncle, uncle. Welcome home." Li Zhensheng was still holding back at first, but his niece's words of welcome home made him happy. Let his tears be like a flood that bursts from a dam and cannot be stopped. He hugged his little niece tightly and responded with choked sobs, "Okay, okay, Fu Niu, uncle is back." Fu Niu remembered the tears her grandma secretly shed, and started crying too. "Grandma is so pitiful, she sheds tears under the quilt." Li Zhensheng cried even harder, "Uncle is unfilial, but he will avenge grandma and the whole family." Hearing the word revenge, everyone recovered from the surprise. "How do you say this? Who wants to harm the Li family?" Mr. Wen was the first to ask. Mrs. Kui also asked, "Yes, what's going on?" Li Zhensheng sat down with his little niece in his arms, as if this would give him the strength to endure the miserable first half of his life. "When I left home to study and didn't return, it was either because of an accident or because I was murdered." Conspiracy, Mr. Wen and others' expressions changed. "Tell me, what's going on?" Li Zhensheng took a deep breath and really wanted to say it, but he didn't know where to start. Li Lauer couldn't help it, and started talking like he was pouring beans through a bamboo tube. "My eldest brother left home for a study tour, and he traveled with a caravan. There was an old shopkeeper in the caravan who was very good to my eldest brother, and the two of them formed a friendship. Friendship at the end of the year. My eldest brother didn't take any precautions. When he got here, the old shopkeeper also came home. My eldest brother also wanted to continue his study tour, but the old shopkeeper asked me to become his son-in-law. He was so angry that he slapped his hand on the table and said angrily, 'Of course my eldest brother doesn't want to. He is the eldest son of our Li family and has a reputation as a scholar.' The old shopkeeper had evil intentions and bribed two second-rate men to pretend to be a robber. The bandit wants to break my eldest brother's legs, take him home to recuperate, and take the opportunity to meet his only daughter, hoping to fall in love in the future. As a result, my eldest brother resisted fiercely. While fighting with two thugs, he rolled down the mountain and hit the back of his head on a boulder. He bled to death. The old shopkeeper took my eldest brother to the hospital. When he woke up, he lost his memory. Knowing his name and where he came from, he pretended to be a benefactor and took my eldest brother home to recover from his injuries. This old shopkeeper is the old man of the Wang family. God had the foresight to make him seriously ill very quickly. Before he died, he forced my eldest brother to marry into the Wang family to repay the favor of saving his life. My eldest brother quit Qingyun Road and became a merchant, working as a cowboy for the Wang family. After so many years, Ma thought he was repaying a favor, but he didn't expect that he was working hard for his enemy. Li Lauer didn't sleep at all last night. He tossed and turned, wishing he could kill all the Wang family members with a knife to relieve his hatred. Even at this moment, he could only finish it with one word, one tear, and gritted teeth. Everyone was dumbfounded when they heard this. The world is so big that there are many strange things. They had heard of people who robbed people's children, but they were all adopted or brought up while they were young. But no one has ever heard of someone with such ruthless methods and evil intentions, who planned to murder and rob a scholar to marry him. Haven't Mr. Wang ever thought about how sad the Li family would be if they lost their son? Just because he likes it, he wants to find someone to marry his daughter, and if he wants to preserve the royal family's property and bloodline, he will break the hearts of other people's families, and he will destroy a scholar's Qingyun Road. How cruel and vicious this is. Beast, this is a beast. We must not let them go. Mr. Wen and Luz Haiheng were so angry that they walked around on the ground, while Mrs. Kui couldn't stop crying. It's strange that I have to tell my aunt. If my aunt knew about it, how sad she would be. This is the revenge of taking away my son. Li Laoer wiped away his tears and continued, not only these, there are even more hateful things. 3 updates. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 244. Chapter 244. Like father, like daughter. What else is going on? Could it be that the Wang family knows the details of my eldest brother and wants to attack our family? Mrs. Kui was so angry that she didn't know what to say and slammed the table. Report to the official, you must report to the official. You must not let go of the Wang family. Isn't the old man in charge of the Wang family now a bachelor? My father was also a bachelor when he was alive. At worst, we will go and complain in front of each other. Luz Haiheng also said, yes, my father is about to return to the court, and he will definitely be able to help when the time comes. If it weren't for such a tense moment, Ji Yan would have wanted to applaud the two of them. It was the first time I saw Pin's dad being so touching. No matter what method you use, as long as it is to uphold justice and protect your family from being bullied, it is a good method. Mr. Wen signaled the two of them to calm down, and then said, I am not a censor. If the Wang family really dares to do this, I won't let them go. But I'd better listen to the second brother first to tell me what's going on. Li Laoer glanced at his eldest brother and saw that he had his head lowered, obviously not going to stop him, so he said, those things in the Wang family that kill 1,000 swords, especially that snake-hearted woman Wang Yi. My eldest brother has a headache. For more than 10 years, she had gone to many doctors, but every time she bribed the doctors and said that there was no way to cure my eldest brother's headache. In fact, she was afraid that after my eldest brother was cured, he would remember the past. My eldest brother has been suffering from pain for more than 10 years. Fortunately, our family found Dr. Zhang in time for diagnosis and treatment, otherwise, my eldest brother might not have survived for a year and a half. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Mrs. Kui simply couldn't believe it. Even though Dingbua was so ruthless and unjust to her before, she never thought of putting Dingbua to death. And Li Zhensheng worked as a cow and horse for the Wang family for more than 10 years, and he had 2 children with a girl from the Wang family. The eldest son was only 8 or 9 years old. How could the girl from the Wang family let him die of a headache? The person I have been sleeping with for more than 10 years has such a cruel heart. Like father, like daughter. The Wang family is really a snake and scorpion family. Such a family should have no children or grandchildren. It's really abominable. 1 day is a blessing for a husband and 100 days. Li Zhensheng didn't want to be watched by everyone, so he buried his head in his little niece's shoulder and cried silently. Mr. Wang plotted to kill him, which separated him from his family for more than 10 years. He hated it. But he really likes Wang Yi, the person next to him. They have been in love for half their lives and have been a couple. He has never thought of taking a concubine, but his wife, who is so devoted to each other, knows that he has family in the north and has never let out a word. Even seeing him in pain, he cruelly bribed the doctor and refused to treat him. Even though he knew clearly that he would die if he delayed like this, he still didn't relent in the slightest. He has been sincere for many years and treated his wife 10,000 times well, but he has not been able to exchange his sincerity. The face of a human and the heart of an animal, a snake, scorpion, and poisonous woman, are actually the true face of his loving wife. This is 10,000 times more painful than Mr. Wang's murder. Hearing the good news, my uncle choked silently, and my heart ached terribly. She put one arm around his neck and patted his back gently with the other, comforting him tenderly. Uncle, don't be sad, Fu Niu will support you in your old age from now on. And brothers, please respect uncle. Well, uncle is not sad, uncle has found a home. Li Zhensheng choked and trembled all over. After waiting for a long time, he wiped away his tears casually, took a few deep breaths, and looked at everyone again. I will pay back such a great hatred 1,000 times. The Wang family's plot to murder me is nothing more than to pass on the family line and continue it. Regarding the family business, I want to bring my 2 children back to the Li family, get back the money I have worked hard for more than 10 years, and then destroy the rest of the property, leaving the Wang family with nothing left. He put down the good news, lifted up his gown, and knelt on the ground. Please give me a helping hand. Brother, please get up quickly. Mr. Wen and Mrs. Kui quickly helped him from left to right. Luz Haiheng also said, when it comes to things like this, even if we are strangers, we still have to help you when encountering difficulties, let alone our own family members. We will definitely help you to the end. Li Laoer and his eldest brother saluted and thanked him. Everyone hurriedly returned the salute, and when they looked up, they saw Ji Yin also standing on the stool and saluting in a decent manner. This made everyone laugh, and Mrs. Kui even hugged Ji Yin and kissed her. Our Fu Niu is so smart and cute, she already knows how to help our uncle. After the good news, the atmosphere in the room finally became more relaxed. After setting a goal, everyone gets together to discuss how to proceed. The first step is of course to send Brother Li to the academy. Brother Cat must also stay with him and not let the Wang family get involved. The second step is to destroy the royal family's property and try to move the goods and money out. The third step is to gather witnesses and physical evidence, and have them all in hand, waiting for the day when the Wang family will be sued. The Wang family is a long-established family in the south of the Yangtze River and has a rich heritage. If they resolve this matter privately with the Wang family will never bow their heads and may even attack Li Zhensheng and give Li Zhensheng the name of ungratefulness. Only an official, and also a thunderous method, can catch the Wang family by surprise. At that time, Mr. Lu will be asked to help put pressure on him, and the rumors in the market must also be used. One person is short-term, and many people are long-term. Everyone discussed it for half an hour before the matter was settled. Li Laoer invited Dr. Zhang to confirm that Li Zhensheng had indeed recovered and that the congestion in his head would not cause him to suddenly lose his memory or faint. Everyone was relieved. But the new problem is how to make Li Zhensheng give people the illusion that he is terminally ill because of a headache, but in fact Li Zhensheng has recovered. It's best if ordinary doctors can't check it out. There's no other way. The old man, divine Dr. Zhang, is the most arrogant. If it is a simple matter, he will not pay attention to it. This kind of problem that is a headache for others and that he alone can solve is what he likes best. Sure enough, when he saw everyone looking gloomy, he smiled happily and took the initiative to take over the errand. Such a trivial matter is so easy that it's not worth mentioning. Just leave it to me. The custodian boss became seriously ill within a month, and no one could tell anything was wrong. As long as it is delivered to me in a month, he will be there again in less than half a month. Let him recover as before. But there will definitely be a price to pay for this kind of torment on the body. The boss will need to be raised for 2 or 3 years to slowly make up for it. Okay, Dr. Zhang, I am willing. As long as I can get revenge, I don't care about anything. I can always be with my mother in the future, which can be considered as repayment for the pain of being away from home for many years. Li Zhensheng knelt down and kowtowed, sincerely. Dr. Zhang stretched out his hand to help him and sighed, "You are also a hard-working person. Now that the matter is over, just honor your mother and help the family. I followed your family all the way from the north. Your family has such a good life now. It's not easy. Thank you, Dr. Zhang, for your guidance." Li Zhensheng saluted again. Divine Dr. Zhang waved his hand and replied, "Follow me to get the medicine bag." I have a few small things to tell you. Since we have to pretend to be sick, let's pretend to be more realistic. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 245. Chapter 245. All arrangements should begin. The matter had been discussed previously, and when everyone saw this, they dispersed. When leaving, they did not forget to tell each other, "From now on, please call the king a foreigner, be careful if you blurt it out, it will cause serious trouble." Li Zhensheng thanked everyone and walked out of the door, becoming businessman Wang Yuanwei again. Mr. Wen and Luz Haiheng are going back to the city, and there are too many things that need to be arranged and planned. Mrs. Kui stayed, took the good news and went to the valley to find the old lady. Just as the old lady was walking back with the food box, she smiled when she saw them. "Jinro, the sun is so bright, why did you come out? Come on, let's go home. I asked Hong Ying to make your favorite stuffed meat tofu." Mrs. Kui couldn't help but blushing when she thought of the previous incident. The old lady didn't know that her favorite eldest son had been murdered in this way. If she found out, she would be in agony. Fortunately, everyone concealed the matter first. Although it will be revealed one day, it can be delayed as long as possible. Jiyan was afraid that her grandma would notice Mrs. Kui's behavior, so she quickly struggled and hugged her neck. "Grandma, Fu Niu is also hungry." "I know, little greedy cat, your mother has steamed egg custard for you." The old lady put down the food box and hugged her granddaughter, and didn't care to see what happened to Mrs. Kui. Mrs. Kui quickly picked up the food box and walked back with her grandparents. In the courtyard of the Wang family in the south of the city, Wang Yi finally saw that her husband had not come home drunk. She couldn't help but happily went up to him and asked, "Is it going well for you to do errands today?" "Good luck." Wang Yuanwei smiled and raised the roasted chicken in his hand. "I went to Luoan, rented a yard, and bought you a roasted chicken on the way. Isn't this your favorite food? Tonight how many drinks will the couple have?" Wang Yi blushed with embarrassment and said angrily, "The children are all here, let's go back to the house and talk." Brother Li led the cat brother around his father. "Dad, take us to play on the street tomorrow, okay?" "Okay." Wang Yuanwei picked up his younger son and rubbed his older son's head. "I'm going to send gifts to my brother to go to the academy the day after tomorrow. Let's go out to buy some things tomorrow." "So fast?" Wang Yi was a little surprised and asked, "Can't you wait 10 days and a half?" "No." Wang Yuanwei did not look at her. He lowered his head to help his youngest son cover his torn clothes. "I have rented the yard today and all the supplies are complete. I only need to bring the bedding and luggage. There is one at the college. A class for children has been in session for half a month. It was easy for Brother Li to keep up in the past, otherwise it would have been difficult for Brother Li to study again if it had been delayed for a long time. Brother Li has a quiet temperament and also likes to read." At this time, he also said, "Mom, I want to go to school, I am not lazy." Wang Yi couldn't say anything else, so she could only respond, "Okay, let's go the day after tomorrow." Soon, the dinner table was set and the family ate. After the meal, the children went to bed early. The couple drank a pot of wine and sat down to drink and eat roast chicken. Wang Yuanwei had a glass of wine on his left and a glass on his right, and he soon became half drunk. He tore a chicken drumstick to Wang Yi and said with a smile, "When I was very ill, you pulled the chicken drumstick for me to eat. You also said that you would get better quickly after eating the drumstick. I still remember it now." Wang Yi's face was stiff. She forced a smile and said, "How many years ago, you still remember?" Wang Yuanwei smiled bitterly, "I've been having a severe headache recently, and I'm afraid that one day I won't remember anything. If I talk to you more, I'll feel more at ease." Wang Yi felt a little distressed. After thinking about it, she said, how about we find a doctor and prescribe decoction for a few more days? Wang Yuanwei shook his head. I've been suffering from this disease for more than 10 years. Since all the doctors I've gone to said it can't be cured, forget it. It's my life as long as I live. Wang Yi clenched the chicken drumstick in her hand, bit her lip subconsciously, hesitated for a long time, and then said, "Don't say that, sir. It may be fine in a few days. I am such a good man, and nothing will happen to me." Well, it's impossible to say for sure. God is blind. Look at how many evil people in the world have children and grandchildren, and how many good people have no good end. Wang Yuanwei said it casually, but Wang Yi felt extremely guilty after hearing it. She ate the chicken leg slowly, but it was a little hard to swallow. Lately, I feel like something is wrong. Has her heart become softer as she gets older? Thinking about his deceased father and the Wang family's fortune, Wang Yi took a deep breath to suppress the uneasiness in her heart. It's good to go to Luoyuan to live for a while. Maybe everything will be fine when you come back. Wang Yuanwei lowered his head to pour the wine, and saw his wife's expression clearly from the corner of his eye, and his heart felt completely cold. 1 day's love for a husband and 100 days, but at this moment, it all vanished into ashes. He raised his hand and drank the wine in his glass. Tomorrow, everything should begin. The autumn wind is so diligent that it blows through the millet fields on the hillside thousands of times every day. And the sun is also very diligent and never sets for a day to go out to work. Under their joint care, the autumn harvest finally arrived smoothly. There are more than 1,000 fruit trees planted on the left and right hills of the hot spring valley. However, there are not many flowers and fruits this year. Next year will be the time when the flowers are in full bloom and the fruits are harvested. The main character this year is still the golden field of millet among the fruit trees, with each ear of grain humbly bent over, swaying from time to time as the autumn wind blows. On this day, except for those who were on errands in the valley and could not leave, all the people in the village gathered at the top of the mountain. Hundreds of men, women, and children, some carrying sickles, some carrying poles, and some carrying baskets, looked at the golden rice in their eyes. Their hearts were heavy for a moment and they couldn't help but shed tears. At this time last year, they were in their hometown. They hurriedly collected the sorghum from the Li family and embarked on the road to escape. At that time, all they could think about was surviving. I don't want to die on the roadside, under the knife of barbarians, or in the deep mountains and old forests. No one dared to imagine that there would be a time like this. They had a home again, put down roots, and were busy harvesting again. Not only did they survive, they also lived so well. The millet in front of them is actually no longer what they rely on to survive. They have hot spring valleys where they can make a lot of money every day, and melon fields that can be sold for sky-high prices. Even in the riverbanks, there are still large areas of peanuts and sweet potatoes that have been confiscated. But this does not prevent them from being in awe and gratitude for the grain in their eyes. Food is always the greatest source of confidence for survival. A good harvest is always the people's deepest hope. The village chief wiped away his tears and said, "Everyone remember, how miserable we were before, and how happy we are now. I have firmly remembered them all. Whoever dares to ruin all this will be punished by the whole village. I'll let him go." "Yes, village chief," everyone responded loudly. The village chief then called Li Laoer to come forward. The two raised their sickles high and shouted in unison, "It's a good harvest, the sickles are on." The villagers also raised the things in their hands and shouted, "The harvest is good, the sickle is ready." The pieces of millet were cut down, quickly tied up, put on burdens and sent back to the threshing floor in the village. The old men and children carried baskets and picked up the fallen ears of grain. No one is lazy, and no one complains about being tired. The whole village is like a high-speed machine, each performing its duties. Mrs. Li carried her granddaughter on her back and climbed up the mountain to deliver herbal tea. Then she carried her granddaughter on her back to pick grains. Jian couldn't bear to leave. Grandma was tired, so she struggled to get to the ground. The old lady spread her apron under the fruit tree and asked her granddaughter to sit on it and look at the kettle. Perhaps she was afraid that her granddaughter would cause trouble, so she gave her a snack. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 246. Chapter 246 The Ambition of the Common People. Jian was not hungry at all, and even wanted to help, but her fat arms and legs were just useless, and she had no strength at all. There are grain stubbles everywhere. If they get stuck, it will cause trouble for the family. But it's really boring to see everyone busy like this. So, everyone was walking back and forth, and they saw Jian sitting and eating snacks, lying down and eating snacks, lying down and eating snacks, and then, fell asleep holding the snacks. The fair and fat girl, with sky-high braids, gold bells, red clothes and green trousers, hanging her chubby little hands and feet, just lying under the warm autumn sun, lying in the joy of the harvest. Everyone can't help but walk softly when passing by. They can't bear to interrupt the children's dreams and are afraid of ruining this microcosm of a beautiful life. Mrs. Lee took off her coat, pulled 2 baskets, and built a simple tent for her granddaughter, fearing that the autumn wind would chill the child. When I woke up from my sleep, it was already dusk. The millet on the mountain has almost been cut, and it is bare and looks a bit mottled. However, the remaining fruit trees are completely in charge of their own affairs, standing tall and arrogant in the autumn wind. Li Laozi was walking down the mountain with a load on one shoulder and his daughter sitting on the other shoulder. Old Lady Li was following behind, shouting, "Slow down, don't throw funiur." Jian hugged her father's head and laughed loudly. The guests in the valley drove their carriages back to the city. They couldn't help but be envious when they saw the large tracts of golden millet in the drying fields and the undisguised smiles on the villagers' faces. The broken gold beach used to be a Jedi place, and no one wanted to take a second look at it, but now it has changed a lot. Yeah, who would have thought that a group of refugees from the north would turn this place into a treasure? This hilltop is considered to be land reclamation. The court does not collect grain taxes, but it is an advantage. It's also people who are willing to endure hardships. That's true. I've been here several times and I can clearly see that there are really no idle people in this village. The people in the village didn't know that they had become the envy of others. They were tired from the busy autumn harvest and had a full meal at night. Except for those on patrol, everyone went to bed early. Tomorrow we will continue to harvest millet, which will be completed in about 3 days, and then we will harvest sweet potatoes and peanuts. Sweet potatoes are easy to talk about, so each family eats them as food. But the peanuts have to find a good outlet and cannot be eaten as snacks. What a pity. All the produce in the fields has been recovered, and schools must be built without stopping. The weather is cold in winter, and there is not much work to do. Children have to be sent to school to study and learn writing and arithmetic. In the past, several families felt sorry for Shuxiu and did not send their children to the Li family's primary school. As a result, if you want a worker in the valley, you must be able to write menus and calculate accounts. The boys in their family cannot go and can only follow them to dig food in the fields. This can make their intestines turn green with regret, and when they mention it, the family will quarrel. Now before the school is built, these families are determined to send all their children, both men and women, to the school. They have long memories. Being able to write calculations at any time has only advantages and absolutely no disadvantages. Compared to harvesting millet, the children are particularly excited to harvest peanuts and sweet potatoes because they can be eaten. The peanuts have just been pulled out of the ground along with the peanut seedlings, and the shells are peeled off to reveal the peanuts inside. They are still tender when you bite them, and have an indescribable sweet taste. There are also freshly dug sweet potatoes. Just find some dry grass to make a fire, bury it in it, wait for half an hour, and the fragrant roasted sweet potatoes will be ready to eat. Jian's family likes to wait for their children, and they can't stand the excitement in the fields. If the valley is not busy, they will come back. It's called helping, but it's actually just for stealing. Jian was sandwiched between her brothers, sitting on the soft sweet potato seedlings, looking at the fire, eagerly waiting to satisfy her craving. Having learned from the experience of almost roasting his sister on a stone, Jian Jiaxi had a long memory, and this time he firmly protected his sister behind him and never allowed her to come forward. Finally, it was not until the fire was completely extinguished that 7 or 8 sweet potatoes were picked out. The skin of the sweet potato is like black charcoal, but when you break it open, the light yellow pulp inside is exposed, steaming, and it is really 100 times sweeter than when you eat it at home. Jian hugged a sweet potato, hissing and gasping from the heat, but still couldn't bear to put it down. When Mrs. Kui and sister-in-law Kian came to the field carrying the tea basket, they almost didn't recognize that the little black boy in front of them was Jian. The fat girl's body is covered with dust, her little hands are dirty, her forehead, nose, and mouth are all pitch black. When she smiles, her small white teeth are extraordinarily shiny. Let's look at how many boys the An family has. They are only darker and dirtier, not the blackest and dirtiest. Mrs. Kui laughed and held her stomach. Are you roasting sweet potatoes or roasting yourself? Why are they all so dirty? Jian Jiaxi was still a young man, so he felt ashamed and quickly wiped his face twice, but they forgot that their hands were even darker, and they wiped themselves like a tabby cat. Look at each other, point at each other and roll on the ground with a smile. Jian took a mouthful of sweet potato, laughed and jumped around, and finally put the sweet potato to Mrs. Kui's mouth. Mrs. Kui smelled the sweet potatoes and couldn't help but take a bite. She smiled and said, "This year's sweet potatoes are really delicious." She pulled off the handkerchief and wiped it on Jian a few times, then carried her to find Mrs. Li. Old Mrs. Li was sitting picking up peanuts. Seeing her granddaughter in this state, she couldn't laugh or cry. "I really can't let my family settle down and take care of their children every time I ruin food or like a piece of rubbish." Jian stuffed the remaining sweet potatoes into Grandma's mouth and shouted with a smile, "Brother baked it, it's delicious." The old lady swallowed the sweet potato, smiled and cursed, "I know, ugly girl, if you don't want to say a few words to your brother, you are blocking Grandma's mouth." Jian hugged the old lady's neck and squirmed in her arms, "Brother is good, Grandma is even better." "That's pretty much it." The old lady patted her granddaughter's chubby little butt, carefully stuffed a fresh peanut into her mouth, and told her, "Chew slowly, be careful not to get it stuck in your throat." After saying that, she handed the remaining peanuts to Mrs. Kui. "Have you cooked at home? I've been really busy these days, and I've made you tired." "That's right, Auntie, the autumn harvest is the busiest time and everyone has to help. We can't do anything else. It's easy to cook a little." Mrs. Kui slowly ate the peanuts, looked up at the blue sky, and smelled the scent of harvest in the wind. She couldn't help but sigh. "Auntie, it's such a wonderful life like this." The old lady also laughed. "Yes, in fact, every family has no ambition to live a prosperous and wealthy life. It is just a family reunion, peace and security, food and clothing." Mrs. Kui's heart skipped a beat when she thought of what happened outside the village. She dared to change the subject, but the sound of horse hooves could be heard in the distance on the road outside the village. She stood up subconsciously, wondering if there was something wrong with Wang Yuanwei. Seeing that Li Laoer was also worried, he ran up to meet him. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 247. Chapter 247, Life Hangs in the Balance. Within a few words, he ran back frantically, shouting, "Where is Dr. Zhang? Hurry, Mr. Marquis is waiting for help." All the working villagers stood up in unison, surprised and frightened. Miracle Dr. Zhang was lying on the peanut seedlings and taking a nap, but he was also startled. Before he could recover, Mr. Li stepped forward, picked him up and ran away. Shenji Zhang was so angry that he slapped Mr. Li hard and shouted, "Get my medicine box." Ji Yi and Lu Yang ran towards the village, shouting as they ran, "Nai, let's follow fourth uncle to rescue Mr. Ho." Of course Mrs. Li couldn't stop her. "Okay, take the medicine box and then go home to get the money." Everyone doesn't know what the situation is like on the Marquis side, but at any time, money can make the world go round, so it's always a good idea to bring more money. In the blink of an eye, most of the Li family ran away. Jiyan was so anxious that she jumped up and raised her calves to run, but she couldn't run fast. She could only hug sister-in-law Qiang's neck and urged, "Go home, go home." Sister-in-law Qiang looked at Mrs. Kui. Mrs. Kui nodded, then she hugged Jiyan and hurriedly followed. After all, Mrs. Li was old and her legs were slow. Fortunately, sister-in-law Qiang was young and good at martial arts. She hugged Jiyan, supported the old lady, and quickly returned to the Li family yard. Old Mrs. Li went straight to the main house and rummaged through the boxes and cabinets to get some money. "Fortunately, I received another salary payment earlier, otherwise the family would be in trouble." Sister-in-law Qiang retreated out of the door with a wink, and the good news quickly started to spread. The only common medicines in her space were a bottle of anti-inflammatory medicine, but there were also 2 bottles of Yunnan Bio powder and a large bottle of salt water. She had changed the packaging before when she was idle, and it came in handy now. "There are also silver knives, so I need to prepare some." The old lady took out the money box, and as soon as she turned around, she was so frightened that she almost let go. The granddaughter was sitting on the kong, with dozens of silver taels placed in front of her, totaling 200 or 300 taels. Comparatively, these in her hand were nothing. She was not allowed to ask any more questions. Dong Mei had already barged in. "Old madam, I heard that the Marquis was injured." Yes, Mrs. Li didn't have time to be surprised anymore. She poured out all the silver and copper coins in the money box, pulled a package and wrapped it in together with the silver coins her granddaughter took out. Jiyan grabbed Dong Mei's hand, pointed to several bottles and said, "Uncle Ye knows how to take these white pills. It's best to take one as soon as you go. In addition, this powder can stop bleeding and relieve pain. Sprinkle it on the wound and leave it within 1 day. After the bleeding stops, just use this bottle of medicine to clean it and then bandage it." Dong Mei nodded heavily despite being frightened, quickly stuffed the medicine bottles into her arms, then took the silver bag given by Mrs. Li on her back, turned around and left. Just as Ji Yi and Lu Yang came back carrying Miracle Dr. Zhang's medicine box, the 3 of them rushed out. The soldiers who ran to report back the message immediately let their horses out, and soon they disappeared without a trace. At this moment, the villagers rushed back from the fields and surrounded the soldiers asking questions. "What happened? Yes, why is Mr. Ho injured? Where is Mr. Ho injured?" The soldiers also came to the village with the Marquis, and they didn't hide it now. The Marquis was not injured by barbarians, but was assassinated. A soldier was so angry that his eyes were red. "Originally, we were patrolling Jiangbei. Last time, we killed thousands of barbarians, and the barbarian defense line retreated 30 miles. We should be safe. But suddenly a family of 4 came out of the forest. The man and woman brought 2.5-year-old children, and they said they were being chased by wolves. The man and woman looked dying, and the 2 children were crying hard. The Marquis wanted to take them to Jiangnan for treatment, but the half-grown boy grabbed the Marquis's sleeve and refused to let go. The Marquis felt soft-hearted, so he put him on the horse and rode back to the dock with him. As a result, the half-grown boy on the way, he took out a dagger and tried to stab him. He was alert and avoided the fatal blow, but his back was cut with a long and he was bleeding profusely. Damn it, there are still such wolf-hearted people. Yes, the Marquis saved their lives, and they actually repaid him with kindness. No, these people are not just rushing to assassinate the Marquis, deliberately hiding in Jiangbei, pretending to be victims of the disaster, right? It's possible, it's possible. In order to keep everyone safe, the Marquis guarded the dock day and night. There is no credit but hard work. Who is this, actually trying to harm the Marquis? It's so chilling. Everyone started to curse and stamp their feet anxiously. I thought the Marquis was injured in a fight with the barbarians, but it turned out to be an assassination. This is not possible. What if the people around the Marquis are not reliable and they try to kill him again while the Marquis is injured? It's impossible to save only Lao Si, Ji Lu Yang, and Dong Mei. No, once the autumn harvest is over, we have to go and pick up the Marquis. Our village is not safe anywhere. If someone dares to hurt the Marquis, we can't agree even at the risk of our lives. The village chief rarely lost his composure and calmness, and became anxious. Round and round. Just as Li Laoer came back, he grabbed Li Laoer and said, "Lao Er, you guard the village while I take people to the pier." "Uncle, I was just about to say this. We are ordinary people and do not understand the thoughts of those nobles. However, the Marquis is favored by the Emperor and has a large number of soldiers. Anyone who wants to take this opportunity to harm the Marquis may not be able to do it. Master, we must help, and we can't be so foolish as to wait for Mr. Ho to come back." Li Laoer also had a sullen face and replied, "Uncle is old, you are at home, I will take the young people in the village and rush over." The people in the village responded immediately. "I'll go, take me one." "There's me, I'll go too." In an instant, all the young men and women in the village stood up, including a few young men. Li Laoer ordered 7 or 8 people and some young men, "You stay here, in case someone takes advantage of this opportunity to come and cause trouble. The rest go home, grab knives and dry food, and dress neatly. We will gather at the entrance of the village in half an hour." The villagers dispersed with a roar, and Mrs. Kui, who stayed behind, stepped forward and said to Li Laoer, "Drive our carriage together with your mule carriage, and everyone will take turns to get on the carriage to rest, and we will continue on our way. Can be faster." "Okay, thank you Mrs. Kui." Li Laoer saluted. Mrs. Kui quickly waved her hand, "It's just a family that is not polite. Besides, Mr. Marquis also saved my life and my senior brother's life at the dock. Now is the time to repay the favor." Jiyan was worried that her second uncle was not good at martial arts and that this trip would be dangerous, but in her previous life, she was just an ordinary home girl, and there was really no weapon reserve at home. At this time, it would be great to have a pistol, or even a high-voltage electric baton. It's a pity that if there is no, she can only worry. Soon, everyone gathered at the entrance of the village. A carriage and a mule carriage, and 25 young and strong men set off. Facing the noon sun, we rushed to Jiangbei Pier. Jiyan's eyes were red and she hugged her grandma's neck tightly. She came to this strange world when she was born. Her family was her warm harbor, her grandmother was her supporter, and Mr. Ye was her protector. Mr. Ye knows the most about her secrets, but he has never asked a word about her. This kind of complete trust and protection freed her from fear and anxiety, allowing her to sleep peacefully and make money unscrupulously. But now, her protector's life is at stake. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 248. Chapter 248, Making Trouble. Old Mrs. Lee raised her feet and looked at the intersection, also worried. Just as she was about to speak, she felt a sudden chill on her neck. When she turned around, she saw her granddaughter's eyes were red from crying. Fu Niu, don't cry. The Marquis is very powerful. He will be fine for sure. Besides, if your father and the others go to pick him up, they will definitely protect the Marquis and come back safely. The old lady patted her granddaughter's back gently. In fact, she was thinking about it very much. But at this time, they, the elderly, are the backbone of the whole family and the whole village, and they cannot show any signs of panic. The village chief also waved his pipe and pot and shouted, everyone should collect the land and continue to collect the land. The work cannot be delayed. Lu Biatu will lead the people to guard the other side of the valley to guard against anyone causing trouble. That's right, Uncle Zhao and others also echoed, at this time, we can't mess up our position. I'm afraid outsiders don't know yet. Let's hide the news and don't let outsiders see the flaws. Just do whatever you have to do. When someone asked why there were so few people in the village, they said they were going into the mountains to collect goods. With a backbone, the villagers became less panicked and dispersed to get busy. Mrs. Kui thought for a while and asked sister-in-law Kyan to go back to the city and quietly tell brother Wen that if something happened in the village or there was a problem with the Marquis, he could help. Let's not talk about what's going on here in the village. I just want to say that it was almost dusk when Li Laozi and others quickly ran to the dock camp. But the wooden gate of the camp was tightly closed, and there was no way to open it. The soldier guarding the door only said, there is an order from above, no one can open it. Several of the Marquis soldiers were furious, open your eyes and see clearly. We are the Marquis soldiers. We have invited a miraculous doctor to come over and treat the Marquis's injuries urgently. The gatekeeper looked a little embarrassed, but he still said, brother, it's not what we want. It is indeed an order from above. It was specifically emphasized that no one is allowed to enter or exit. Li Laozi frowned, guessing that someone was causing trouble. He called Ji Yi and Lu Yang for a few instructions, then pulled his belt and tied Divine Dr. Zhang directly to his body. Don't be afraid, old man, hold on to the medicine box, let's go in. Without waiting for Dr. Zhang to respond, he drew out his long knife and shouted loudly, kill in. Ji Yi and Lu Yang immediately took action, lifted a wooden gate and threw it out. The soldier guarding the gate was so frightened that his teeth almost fell out. Before he could wake up, Li Laozi had already rushed in with Dr. Zhang on his back. Lu Yang and Ji Yi followed closely, and Dong Mei took over the battle. There were soldiers guarding the gate who wanted to catch up and stop him, but they were scolded by the Marquis's personal soldiers, you want to kill the Marquis. Be careful of being stabbed, and you don't know how you died in the end. The guard hesitated for a moment, and during this time, Li Laozi and the others had already rushed to the entrance of the camp. Outside the main tent, 200 soldiers of the Marquis surrounded the tent. The leader was Zhang Cheng, the school captain whom the Li family was familiar with. Opposite him, there were 3 or 4 lieutenants and generals standing with hundreds of soldiers. At this moment, they were scolding sternly, get out of the way. We have to go in and take care of the Marquis. You can afford it if the Marquis is good or bad. Zhang Cheng's forehead was covered with a thin layer of sweat. It could be seen that he was very nervous, but he would not move even a step, and he was holding the long knife tightly in his hand. The Marquis has an order that no one is allowed to enter the camp. Are you going to rebel if you are forcing me like this? The Marquis was assassinated and the murderer escaped. Instead of catching the murderer, you have to force your way into the camp and wait for people from Kyoto to come. Inquire, I must report them all. The lieutenants and generals all frowned. Some of them were really worried about the Marquis, and some had other thoughts. But as Zhang Cheng said, whoever insists on breaking in will get into trouble. At this moment, there was a commotion at the entrance of the camp, and then Li Laozi and others rushed in. Zhang Cheng immediately moved out of the way. "Hurry in, the Marquis is waiting." A deputy general's eyes flashed and he stepped forward to stop him, but Ji Yi grabbed his armor and threw him out with all his strength. There was a loud bang, the dust flew up, and there was silence around the camp. Even with the armor on, it weighed 200 kilograms. In this half-sized man, it was as light as a bag of rice and was thrown away. Zhang Cheng and others became more and more excited, gathered up their formation, and protected the camp so that it was watertight. In the camp, the smell of blood was strong. The Marquis was lying on the bed, his whole back exposed, and the white cloth was spread all over, and it was soaked in blood red. The two military doctors were pale and kneeling aside, anxious. Seeing the crowd coming in, they were frightened and moved further and further. Shenji Dr. Zhang was put down by Li Laozi. He was feeling dizzy all the way. He looked for a medicine bottle in the medicine box, poured a pill and stuffed it into his mouth, which made him feel much better. "Why is it so seriously injured? Why doesn't it stop bleeding? A good man will die even if he bleeds so much," the old man asked angrily. The two military doctors did not dare to delay and quickly explained, "The assassin's knife was smeared with medicine. No matter what powder we sprinkled, it couldn't stop the bleeding. We can only use a cloth to press it." Shen Dr. Zhang snorted coldly, quickly found the powder from the medicine box, and put it on Mr. Ho. It's a pity that reality slapped him hard in the face, and his special medicine powder didn't work. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded. "Do you want the Marquis to bleed to death?" At this time, Dong Mei stepped forward and said, "Take the military doctor out and take care of him. I have some ideas here." Just as Dr. Zhang was about to scold her, Li Laozi and Ji Yi Luyang started to chase her away. The main tent was very large, and two military doctors were taken to the outer tent and guarded by soldiers. Dong Mei took out the medicine bottle from her arms and asked Dr. Zhang, "Miracle doctor, can you give me an injection so that Mr. Ho can wake up for a while?" Miracle Dr. Zhang's eyes were glued to the medicine bottles. The two small porcelain bottles were not surprising, but the largest one in the middle was neither crystal nor jade. It was actually transparent and contained most of the medicine. His heart couldn't help but beat wildly. It must have been given by the Li family. It must have been the mysterious person from the Li family who took action. He wanted to pounce on it immediately and think about it, but now was not a good time, so he could only endure it. Mr. Zhang took out a few golden needles and pricked Mr. Ye a few times. After a while, Mr. Ye opened his eyes. Li Laozi came forward and said quickly, "Mr. Ye, don't worry, we have sent the miracle Dr. Zhang." Mr. Ye blinked and wanted to speak, but his whitened lips made no sound. Dong Mei half knelt, opened a medicine bottle, poured out a small pill, and said vaguely, "Sir, this pill, I said you know how to take it." Mr. Ye's eyes lit up and he nodded slightly. Dong Mei immediately asked for water, fed it to Mr. Ye, and then took the medicine and another medicine bottle. "Sir, this medicine powder can stop bleeding and relieve pain, but you need to rinse it off with this medicine after a day, and we will take you back to Broken Gold Beach as soon as possible." Mr. Ye nodded with difficulty, and then took out a gold medal from under his body. These things took all his strength, and then he closed his eyes and passed out. Dong Mei stood up and gave the gold medal to Li Laozi and the medicine bottle to Dr. Zhang. Shenji Zhang quickly washed his hands and cleaned up the previous powder. In such a short time, the wound was already filled with blood. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 249. Chapter 249. Something went wrong. The incision was a foot long, and the deepest wound in the middle damaged the spine, but the rest was fine. The medicine bottle was opened, and the new powder was sprinkled. Everyone did not dare to breathe. After a while, there was no more blood seeping out of the wounds visible to the naked eye. "Stop it!" Physician Zhang squeezed the medicine bottle tightly in his hand. There was still a little powder in it, which was enough for him to figure out the prescription. Everyone also breathed a sigh of relief, and they were busy bandaging Mr. Ye briefly, and then wrapped him in a quilt. At this moment, it was completely dark outside. Jia Yiping held a quilt roll and followed behind Li Laozi. Li Laozi held the gold medal in his hand and ordered Zhang Cheng and 200 soldiers to escort the Marquis out of the camp. Zhang Cheng and his soldiers responded with a bang, quickly blocked a way, protected Li Laozi and others, and carried the Marquis all the way out of the camp gate. Li Laozi used his arms to lift Ji Yi and got on the horse, while Ji Yi was still supporting the Marquis. The two weighed more than 300 kilograms, and Li Laozi didn't take it seriously at all. Everyone who was chasing after him gasped and hesitated even more. In a moment, everyone got on their horses. Zhang Cheng and 200 soldiers were behind them, and they quickly ran away without a trace. Someone asked in a low voice, "Just, let the Marquis leave." A deputy general said angrily, "What can I do if I don't leave? That man has a gold medal, as if the emperor is here in person. If you dare to stop him, then you are rebelling." After saying this, Su Shi felt that it was inappropriate again, so he added, "There are no good doctors in the camp. If something happens to the Marquis, we can't afford it, so this is fine. Similarly, if the Marquis dies in the camp, they will all be affected, and no one can escape. It's okay to do this now." In the night, Li Laozi and others were running forward on their horses. Ji Yi sat on the horse, holding the horse's belly with his legs to maintain balance, and holding the Marquis flatly with both hands. Li Laozi ran beside him and held the reins of the horse for him. When Ji Yi got tired, it was Li Laozi who supported the Marquis while Ji Yi held the reins. Master Ho injured his back and couldn't lie down, so he could only hold him up like this. You must know that it is really not something ordinary people can do without support and relying on their arms to bear a weight of 1,560 kilograms. But Li Laozi and Ji Yi just persisted for more than an hour, and the soldiers and Zhang Cheng who were following behind were filled with admiration. No wonder the Marquis was injured and immediately sent someone to ask for help. It turned out that the people in Sujintan were so reliable. Actually, they all misunderstood. The Marquis' original intention was to invite Dr. Zhang over, and he did not want to alarm the villagers. But I didn't expect that the knife was poisonous and the injury was too serious. I had no time to make other arrangements, but my life was actually saved by the Li family. Just like that, after running for a while, I met Li Laoer and others. They were holding torches and driving a carriage and a mule cart. More than 20 people, holding hatchets in their hands and determined to rescue the Marquis even if they died, walked and ran for more than 50 miles, and finally successfully reunited. "Where is Mr. Ho? How are you doing?" Li Laoer jumped out of the carriage and asked. Li Laozi was supporting the Marquis, jumped off the horse and replied, "Second brother, the Marquis has injured his back, it's a bit serious, please go home quickly." Li Laoer quickly opened the door of the carriage. There were 7 or 8 layers of quilts in the carriage, which were very soft and greatly alleviated the bumpy road. Master Ho was put on the bed and the quilt was opened. Dr. Zhang quickly checked the wound and gave everyone a reassurance. "Don't be afraid, the wound is no longer bleeding, go home quickly." Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, turned around and went on their way with all their strength. The villagers were all very tired, so the soldiers picked each one up on their horses and led them to run faster. Shenji Zhang breathed a sigh of relief and quickly inserted a few needles around Mr. Ho's wound to help the wound stop the bleeding. When he was free, he picked up the bottle of potion and looked around. The carriage was dark, and he wanted to soak his eyeballs in the potion. Dong Mei was so frightened that she lowered her head and did not dare to say a word. Li Laozi has been standing by Mr. Ho's side. He was the first to find that Mr. Ho was awake, so he hurried over. Master Ho, everyone in the village has come to pick you up. We met and we will be home soon. The bleeding may have stopped, and the Marquis had some strength. He motioned for Li Lao to come closer and whispered, "Don't worry, I have arrangements, and people will come from Kyoto." Li Lao nodded heavily and finally breathed a sigh of relief. He said, "There is something wrong with this matter. The Marquis has a noble status and has been in charge of the border guard army for so long. How could he be so easily injured without any precautions? If there is an arrangement in this, it is a cruel trick. It's just that it's so thrilling. I'm afraid something went wrong in the advance arrangement." It was a full 80 miles from Broken Gold Beach to the pier, 160 miles back and forth. At dawn, everyone actually rushed to the village. This night, almost every household in the village did not sleep well. Most of the young people in the village have left, and everyone in the surrounding villages knows that Sujintan is rich. If someone has bad intentions, they must be careful and guard against it. Secondly, I am worried about Mr. Ho's injury. You must know that the peaceful life that Broken Gold Beach enjoys today is largely due to Mr. Ho's name. Although everyone doesn't know how to get close to Mr. Ho on weekdays, everyone is grateful for his protection and hopes that he will be safe and well. Fortunately, everyone brought the Marquis back in one night. Everyone in the village, men, women, old and young, rushed out of their homes and surrounded the entrance of the village. Mr. Ho was sent into his yard, and it was inconvenient for others. Mrs. Li took Dong Mei with her to help take off Mr. Ho's clothes, leaving only a pair of trousers and his upper body completely naked. Pots of hot water were brought in, and the blood stains were wiped away, turning the hot water red. Everyone who saw it was shocked. Ji Yin took advantage of the chaos and got into the room, sat at Mr. Yes' feet, and kept watching Dr. Zhang perform the acupuncture. Mr. Zhang is also really capable. He was so tired that his forehead was sweating, but his men were steady and steady. While he was grabbing medicine, Ji Yin carefully checked Mr. Yes' injuries. She was not a doctor in her previous life, and there was no good solution at this time. However, if the wound was too large, stitches would be needed to heal it more easily. She still knew this common sense. Ji Yin ran over and lay on Dong Mei's shoulder, and whispered a few words carefully into her ear. Dong Mei's eyes were widened with shock. She wanted to grab the little girl and give her a good shake. She was afraid that she would have lost her head before she could express such an idea. But thinking about the magical powder, she suppressed the thought. The wound on the Marquis's back was like a ridge in the ground, with flesh and blood turning over and bones exposed. Perhaps this method will really help. Dr. Zhang took the medicine, and Tao Hongying immediately took it and boiled it. In a blink of an eye, he saw so many villagers gathered in the courtyard, and shouted, "Everyone, please disperse. Mr. Ho's internal organs are fine, but his skin and flesh injuries are a bit serious. He will be fine in a month or two." The villagers breathed a sigh of relief, and the village chief also said, "Let's all go back and have breakfast. The work in the fields and in the valley cannot be delayed." "Okay, uncle, if you need our help, please give us a shout." The villagers all responded in a hurry, and then dispersed. But Li Laozi, Lu Biatu, and the village chief still stayed in the yard and refused to leave. Zhang Shanai knew that he could not deceive them, so he turned around and entered the house. For a wound like Mr. Ho's, stopping bleeding and pain is only the first step. If you want the wound to heal, you have to survive the fever. That is very difficult. Dong Mei hesitated for a moment, glanced at Ji Yin who was sitting next to the Marquis and pretended to be well behaved, and then stepped forward to speak. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed flowering. Chapter 250. Chapter 250. Dr. Zhang opens the door to a new world. Mr. Zhang, the Marquis just woke up and said, I want you to find a needle and thread to sew up the wound. What? Dr. Zhang jumped angrily, are you crazy? That's skin and flesh, not cloth. How can you sew it with a needle and thread? Dong Mei opened her mouth anyway and simply gave up. Dr. Zhang, think about it, if the clothes are cut open and can be sewn with needle and thread, they can still be worn. Why can't the skin and flesh be healed? And for the wound to grow well, the flesh and blood must be joined together. Use needle and thread to connect the skin and flesh together. It will definitely grow better and faster, and there will be less bleeding. Shen Zhang was speechless and wanted to get angry, but he still felt that this statement made sense. He walked around the room with his hands behind his back, his pace getting faster and faster, and his whole body getting more and more excited. Skin, clothes, together. In the end, Dong Mei couldn't help it and urged, Dr. Zhang, it's better to do it as soon as possible. The young master's wound is too big and cannot be left to dry like this. It will easily suppurate and it will be dangerous if he gets fever. Divine Dr. Zhang glared at her and said angrily, you think I don't know? Aren't I worried that he will suffer? It's skin and flesh, not clothes. How can it not hurt? While he was cursing like this, he rummaged through the medicine box and found a small bottle of medicine. Dong Mei hurriedly found a needle and thread, and then soaked it in strong wine, causing Dr. Zhang to look at her again with suspicion in his eyes. Dong Mei quickly said, strong alcohol can kill viruses. Soaking the needles and threads in this way will prevent the wounds from suppurating. Physician Zhang snorted and said nothing. He reached out and took out the bottle of physiological saline from his arms. He opened it after a lot of effort, and then cleaned the powder on Mr. Ye's wound. The severe pain made Mr. Ye unable to help but clench his fists even if he fainted. Ji Yin quickly crawled to him and hugged his arm, Uncle Ye, it doesn't hurt, it will be fine soon. I don't know whether it was because he heard the good news or was used to the pain, but Mr. Ye quickly became quiet again. There was a flash in Dr. Zhang's eyes, but his hands did not stop. He quickly cleaned the wound and applied a small bottle of medicine on the flesh on both sides of the wound. This is a potion I occasionally thought about before. It has no other use. If you apply it, you will be numb for an hour without feeling anything. But this time it came in handy. As he spoke, he picked up the needle and thread, took a deep breath, trembled slightly, and started sewing. Sure enough, Mr. Ye didn't even frown, and it was obvious that he didn't feel any pain. Stitch after stitch, from the initial hecticness to the proficiency, the more Dr. Zhang stitches, the brighter his eyes become. The 1-foot-long knife edge was really like a torn piece of clothing, but it was closed like this, with only a little blood seeping through. It can be said to be a great success. Shenzhong Dr. Zhang turned around to find the medicine for the wound. Ji Yin quickly dipped a clean cloth in strong wine and gave it to Dong Mei. Dong Mei was stunned for a moment and quickly wiped the wound around Mr. Ye. Shenji Dr. Zhang turned around and saw him, but he didn't say anything. He just sprinkled the wound medicine on the wound, and then wrapped Mr. Ye's upper body like a rice dumpling with clean fine cotton strips as wide as his palm. After doing all this, everyone breathed a long sigh of relief. Zhang Shenai sat down on the kong and asked outside, is the soup ready? Old Mrs. Li had gone outside early and was busy with her daughter-in-law. Now she hurried in with some medicinal soup. It's just cooked, just right for eating. Shenji Dr. Zhang called Mr. Li from the hospital to come in and help pick Mr. Ye up, letting him drink the medicinal soup. After drinking, he climbed down again. After all this tossing, the white cloth strips wrapped around the wound were not stained with blood. It was obvious that the wound did not open and the stitches were very effective. Physician Zhang was so excited that he wanted to be full of children. He took the wine bowl and needle and thread and left, leaving only one sentence behind. Look at him and call me if he has a high fever. Before he could even finish his words, he disappeared. He didn't know where he was running or what kind of test stitch he was looking for. Dong Mei breathed a long sigh of relief and piled herself on the edge of the bed. She was scared to death just now. This is the young master, her master. Those needles and threads are sewing the skin and flesh. If something goes wrong, the master will die, and so will she. Fortunately, it worked. She couldn't help but look up at Jiyin. The little fat girl had lost her usual naughty look and was sitting quietly next to the young master. There was even a bit of determination on her little face. Perseverance. Such words can actually be used on a 2-year-old child. Dong Mei really suspected that she was going crazy, but she happened to be very clear-headed. Mrs. Li didn't know that Dong Mei was so entangled in her heart. She thought she was frightened by her master's injury, so she stepped forward to help her and whispered, "I'll watch over here. How about you go to the next room to sleep for a while?" Dong Mei shook her head desperately, "No, old madam, I will stay here. Old madam, just go home and do your work, and she will replace me when I feel sleepy." The old lady was thinking about her children and grandchildren and did not argue with her. She also wanted to take her granddaughter away. Seeing Jiyin holding Mr. Ye's arm, she sighed again. "Be good, Fu Niu, stay here and don't make trouble, you know." "I got it, Grandma, I'll stay with Uncle Ye." Jiyin responded obediently, and after coaxing old Mrs. Li away, she immediately whispered to Dong Mei, 2/4 of an hour later, "Give Uncle Ye another pill, and it will be better sooner or later once each, don't stop, at least 5 days. After that, she took out 2 small capsules from her purse and stuffed them into Dong Mei. "If Uncle Ye is very hot, take one of these capsules, melt it with a small amount of water, and feed it to Uncle Ye, at least some intervals within 3 hours, the fever was relieved and the pain was relieved." Dong Mei nodded vigorously and carefully hid the capsule. At this time, perhaps the anesthetic had worn off, Mr. Ye groaned and woke up, but his eyes were a little hazy and he was obviously still confused. Jiyan and Dong Mei seized the opportunity and quickly fed him pills. The village chief, Li Lao Si and others quietly entered the house and looked at Mr. Ye, and then hurriedly left. The noble son, who is so embarrassed on weekdays, is mighty general, and is now dying on the symbol. Whoever watches is distressed. Tao Hongying rushed to the valley to make lunch, and then brought back a can of light vegetable and lean meat porridge, which she heated on the small stove, waiting for Mr. Ye to wake up and take a few bites. It was dusk, and Mr. Ye had a high fever all day long. Fortunately, Jiyin's secret capsules can help reduce fever, so it's not too dangerous. Li Lao and others were worried and searched everywhere for Dr. Zhang. In the end, the old man actually caught a rabbit, shaved it, cut it all over, and sewed it up with needles and threads. Everyone who watched felt goosebumps on their bodies, which dissipated instantly. When it got dark again, Mr. Ye finally woke up. Although he was still a little feverish, his eyes were a little clearer. He moved and gasped in pain, which also woke up the old lady and Dong Mei who were napping on the side. "Young master, are you awake? Are you hungry? Eat a few mouthfuls of porridge first, and then take the medicine." The two of them were so happy that they hurriedly gathered together to serve porridge and medicine. Mr. Ye felt his arms were heavy and slowly turned his head to look. It turned out that Jiyin had hugged his arms and was sleeping deeply. The little fat girl had a sparse brow furrowed and tears hanging from the corners of her eyes, which made him feel sad. "Auntie." His voice was hoarse and he told the old lady, "I've made you worried. Take Fu Niu back to sleep and don't get over her illness." End of this chapter.